There is a certain kind of person who observes everything yet says very little. They often feel like they are carrying the heavy weight of their own mind, not because they are anxious or afraid, but simply because they see too much. They notice the subtle shifts in a room, the unspoken words in a conversation. If this sounds familiar, you might not just be an overthinker. You might possess one of the rarest forms of intelligence, deep self-awareness. Most people go through life on autopilot, simply reacting to whatever happens to them. But psychology reveals that highly self-aware people live on an entirely different mental plane. Let's explore the signs that show you have this rare depth of mind. Sign number one, you don't just experience your emotions, you observe them. When anger or sadness hits, most people are entirely consumed by the feeling. But you have this strange ability to step outside of yourself in real time. You watch yourself getting angry. You ask yourself why you are feeling this way. In psychology, this is called metacognition, the profound ability to think about your own thinking. It is a heavy burden, but it is also the ultimate form of mental freedom. Sign number two, you read the unspoken energy of a room the moment you walk in. When someone speaks, average listeners focus entirely on the words being said out loud. But you are listening to the heavy, complicated silence hidden right between those words. You notice the subtle micro-expressions, a slight shift in posture, a tense, forced smile. Carl Jung called this social face the persona, the acceptable mask we all wear for the world. Society functions smoothly mostly because people politely agree to only interact with these painted masks. But your mind refuses to stay on the surface. You accidentally look right through the mask. You sense the hidden shadow underneath. You feel their secret grief or hidden anger, even as they laugh. And this profound perception is exactly why casual small talk feels so incredibly exhausting to you. You are not just making polite conversation, you are absorbing a massive wave of invisible emotional data. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman describes System 2 thinking as the slow, deep, and highly energy-draining part of our brain. For the highly self-aware person, this heavy analytical system is almost always running in the background. Because of this, others might wrongly assume that your quietness is just social anxiety or extreme shyness. But it is not fear. It is simply cognitive overload from observing far too much at once. You don't retreat from the crowd because you are afraid. You step away to protect your peace. Sign number three, superficial conversations and small talk feel physically exhausting to you. To the average person, engaging in casual small talk is just a harmless way to pass the time. They can easily discuss the weather, the latest social trends, or minor daily complaints. But for you, engaging in this surface-level chatter feels incredibly draining, almost like breathing in a vacuum. It is extremely important to understand that you do not do this out of arrogance. You don't think you are better. It is simply because your mind is built for the deep end. You want to know what breaks someone's heart, what they truly fear, and what gives their life meaning. When you are forced to stay in the shallow waters of conversation, your highly active brain feels starved. Fortunately, this creates a very painful and common misunderstanding in your daily social life. When you quietly withdraw from the group, people often mistake your silence for a sense of superiority. They look at your quiet distance and assume you are building a wall to keep everyone out. But the hidden truth is you are not building a wall, you are desperately looking for a door that leads away from the fake smiles toward a genuine and authentic human connection. You have reached a point where you would rather sit in absolute silence than participate in an empty exchange. Because, to a deeply self-aware mind, a fake connection is much lonelier than simply being alone. Sign number four, you replay and analyze social interactions long after they have ended. While most people forget a casual conversation the moment they walk away, your mind treats every social exchange like a complex puzzle that needs to be solved. You lie awake at night, running the exact same scenario through your head. You dissect your tone of voice, your word choices, and their subtle facial expressions. You constantly ask yourself, did I talk too much? Did I come across as arrogant? Or perhaps you worry that you accidentally hurt someone's feelings without even realizing it. In psychology, this is known as post-event processing, and it can feel incredibly overwhelming. It feels like a dark loop of anxiety, making you totally doubt your own social skills. Once again, psychology offers a completely different perspective on this exhausting habit. This tendency does not mean you are socially awkward or broken. It is actually a profound sign of high cognitive empathy and self-regulation. Your brain is meticulously scanning the interaction to ensure harmony and deep understanding. It is the painful, exhausting price you pay for caring so deeply about the impact you have on others. You are not failing at socializing. You are simply holding yourself to a much higher emotional standard. Let's move to sign number 5. You are painfully aware of your own toxic traits and deep flaws. When the average person makes a terrible mistake, their immediate instinct is to point the finger outwards. It is a very natural psychological defense mechanism to protect the fragile ego by blaming the world. But a deeply self-aware mind does the exact opposite. It immediately turns the harsh mirror inward. You possess the rare and quiet courage to look at the darkest, ugliest corners of your own psyche. Famed psychologist Carl Jung called this hidden, repressed part of our human personality the shadow self. While most of society spends their entire lives running from their shadow, you sit down with it. You catch yourself feeling irrational jealousy, acting selfishly, or being subtly manipulative in a certain situation. And instead of making comforting excuses, you force yourself to admit the truth. That was my fault. This level of radical self-honesty is incredibly heavy. No one wants to be the villain in their own story. It requires you to constantly dismantle your own pride and ego, piece by painful piece, every single day. But by refusing to hide from your own darkness, you actually strip away its destructive, hidden power. You begin the profound process of integrating your shadow, bringing those dark aspects into the conscious light. This is exactly why you tend to be so surprisingly forgiving and non-judgmental toward other flawed people. Because when you know your own darkness so intimately, it is impossible to condemn the darkness in others. Sign number 6. You frequently doubt your own intelligence and abilities, often feeling like an imposter. We live in a loud world where average people are incredibly confident about things they barely understand. In cognitive psychology, this common bias is famously known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. It states that people with the absolute least amount of knowledge tend to massively overestimate their competence. They stand on a tiny, shallow hill of information and falsely believe they have conquered the entire world. But your deep self-awareness places you on the exact opposite side of this psychological spectrum. Because you observe the world so deeply, you are painfully aware of how vast and complex it truly is. You quickly realize that finding one single answer only leads to a dozen more complicated questions. This overwhelming perspective often triggers what psychologists commonly refer to as imposter syndrome. You constantly feel like you are just faking it, and that eventually everyone will expose you as a fraud. You watch others speak with absolute certainty while you hesitate, seeing the endless gray areas in everything. But please understand this. Your hesitation is not a lack of intelligence. It is the ultimate proof of it. As the ancient philosopher Socrates famously observed, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Your self-doubt is simply your brain's healthy, humble recognition of the infinite unknown universe around you. So the next time you feel like you aren't smart enough, remember, only a brilliant mind is capable of profound doubt. Sign number 7, you instantly see through people's hidden motives, making it very hard to trust. While others are easily charmed by a charismatic smile, polite compliments, or grand gestures, your mind immediately scans the underlying micro-expressions to find the actual truth. Psychologists call this rapid observation thin slicing, the ability to find deep patterns in human behavior almost instantly. Because you understand your own complex mind so well, you easily recognize the psychological games others play. You clearly see the hidden manipulation, the unspoken jealousy, and the silent ego-driven power struggles. Having this kind of psychological X-ray vision is a superpower, but it is also incredibly lonely. When you consistently see the ugly truth behind the polite mask, it makes it profoundly difficult to trust. This is exactly why you keep your inner circle extremely small and heavily guarded. You do not do this because you hate people or think you are superior to them. You do it because letting a toxic, unself-aware person into your life costs you far too much mental energy. But here is the most painful and exhausting part of this deep empathy paradox. Even when you clearly see someone's toxic behavior, you also see the unhealed childhood trauma causing it. You understand their deep pains so clearly that you often find yourself making excuses for their bad behavior. But true wisdom means realizing that understanding someone's darkness does not mean you must let it consume you. Sign number 8. People naturally confess their deepest secrets to you, turning you into the unofficial therapist. Because you listen without judgment, Friends and even strangers constantly dump their emotional baggage onto you. With your deep psychological intuition, you easily untangle the chaotic, confusing threads of other people's minds. You help them find clarity. But when they walk away healed, their heavy energy stays with you. Over time, this creates a very lonely and unbalanced dynamic in almost all of your relationships. You become the designated strong friend, the safe harbor where everyone goes when their life is falling apart. You stand like a solid stone lighthouse, quietly guiding everyone else through their dark and stormy nights. Deeply self-aware mind eventually has to ask, who does the lighthouse turn to when it breaks? The tragic truth is, because you are so hyper-aware of how much everyone else is suffering, you refuse to burden anyone with your own problems. You quietly lock your own pain away. In psychology, this exhausting pattern is referred to as chronic one-sided emotional labor. No matter how high your emotional intelligence is, a single human mind cannot carry the weight of a village. Deep self-awareness means finally recognizing that you cannot heal people by carrying their trauma for them. You have to put their baggage down. You must stop psychoanalyzing the people you love. And finally start giving yourself the exact same profound empathy you so freely give to the world. Let's look at sign number 9. You constantly feel like you are falling behind everyone else in life. Society operates on a very strict, fast-paced, and artificial timeline for human success. You are expected to graduate, build a career, and figure out your entire identity almost immediately. When you look around, it seems like the average person achieves these milestones with effortless speed. This can make you feel profoundly lost, like you are standing still while the world rushes by. But Carl Jung believed that highly self-aware individuals must go through a much longer, deeper psychological process. He called this vital journey individuation, the slow, meticulous process of becoming your true, authentic self. Average people often build their lives quickly because they simply adopt the prepackaged masks society hands them. They comfortably walk down the paved roads that have already been laid out for them by others. But your mind rejects these shallow, prepackaged identities. You cannot blindly follow a path you do not understand. Instead, you spend years doing the exhausting, invisible work of tearing down illusions and questioning your own desires. Think of it like nature. A weed grows incredibly fast, blooming overnight, but it has shallow roots. A mighty oak tree takes decades to grow, spending its early years pushing massive roots deep into the dark earth. You are not falling behind. You are simply spending your time building a foundation that most people never reach. This is why deeply self-aware people often become powerful late bloomers, thriving profoundly in the second half of life. Sign number 10. You no longer try to fix yourself and have finally found profound peace in being exactly who you are. For many years, you might have viewed your intense overthinking and deep sensitivity as a heavy, exhausting burden. You often wished you could just unplug your mind, turn off the noise, and be blissfully ignorant. But as you mature, you begin to realize that this profound depth of mind is actually your greatest gift. In a psychological sense, your deep self-awareness acts exactly like a beautiful, clear crystal prism. While the average person only sees the flat, dull black and white surface of their daily life, your mind breaks every single experience down into a deeply rich, vibrant, and meaningful spectrum of color. Yes, this high level of empathy means that your sadness and grief will always cut deeper than most, but it also means that your capacity for genuine love, profound joy, and authentic connection is infinitely greater. You are not broken. You do not need to be cured of your depth or your quiet nature. Let the rest of the world rush blindly down their gray, prepackaged, artificial paved roads. You belong to the rare 1% who possess the quiet courage to actually stay fully awake. In a loud, fast-paced world that is mostly living completely asleep, embrace the profound brilliance of your own mind. It truly is the rarest form of human intelligence. This video is for reflection and reference only and does not replace professional psychological advice. If you are struggling, please reach out to someone you trust or a professional.